The Little Prince, written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, is a timeless tale that transcends age and culture. First published in 1943, this novella has captured the hearts of millions with its profound simplicity and universal themes. Through the eyes of a stranded pilot, the story follows the journey of a young prince from a tiny asteroid as he explores the mysteries of life, love, and human nature. Though seemingly a children's book, its poetic prose and symbolic narrative offer deep reflections on the complexities of adulthood and the beauty of childlike wonder. The story weaves themes of friendship, responsibility, and the search for what truly matters, reminding readers that what is essential is invisible to the eye. Now let us embark on the enchanting adventure of the Little Prince and discover the lessons hidden in his travels. When I was 6 years old, I saw a remarkable picture in a book about the jungle. It was an illustration of a boa constrictor swallowing a wild beast. Captivated by this extraordinary sight, I took up my crayons and drew my first masterpiece. It depicted the snake as it appeared after its meal, its body forming a peculiar shape around its prey. I proudly showed my drawing to the adults, only to be met with laughter and confusion. "It's just a hat," they said dismissively. But it wasn't a hat. It was a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. Their inability to see the truth behind the drawing disheartened me. So, I gave up on my artistic ambitions and instead learned to pilot airplanes. As I grew older, I resigned myself to the world of adults, a world that valued facts, figures, and practicality above imagination. Still, a part of me always longed for the childlike wonder I had abandoned. Years later, while flying over the vast Sahara Desert, my airplane suffered an engine failure. I was stranded alone with no hope of rescue. As the scorching sun beat down on the endless sea of sand, I worked tirelessly to fix my plane. Then, on the first morning of my ordeal, a soft, curious voice broke the silence. "Please draw me a sheep." Startled, I turned to see a small, golden-haired boy standing before me. He wore simple clothes and bore an expression of quiet confidence, as though his presence in this barren wasteland was the most natural thing in the world. "Draw me a sheep," he repeated gently. I was too astonished to refuse. My childhood failure at drawing resurfaced in my mind, but something about this strange boy compelled me to try. I sketched a sheep. He frowned. No, this one is too sickly. Please draw another." I tried again. "Too old," he said. Frustrated, I drew a box with tiny holes in it. "The sheep you want is inside." His face lit up with delight. "That's perfect." I had no idea who this boy was or where he had come from, but his presence filled me with a sense of wonder I hadn't felt in years. And so began our friendship, born in the solitude of the desert. This small stranger, who called himself the Little Prince, would go on to share stories of his distant home and his extraordinary journey. But for now, he remained an enigma, a childlike figure who seemed to embody the purest form of curiosity and trust. Little did I know that his tales would forever change how I saw the world. The Little Prince hailed from a planet so small that one might call it a mere speck of dust floating in the vastness of space. It was known as Asteroid B612, a name given by an earthly astronomer who first discovered it through his telescope. But to the Little Prince it was simply home. On this tiny planet, life was simple but required diligence. Each morning, the Little Prince tended to his responsibilities with care. There were 3 small volcanoes on his planet, 2 active and 1 dormant. He swept their chimneys meticulously, for, as he said, "You never know. The dormant one could wake up someday." Another task was pulling up the baobab seedlings that constantly threatened to overrun his planet. These invasive trees would grow enormous if left unchecked, their roots capable of splitting the tiny planet apart. The Little Prince described this duty as a matter of discipline. "It is tedious," he admitted, "but very important." Amidst these routines, the Little Prince's world changed when a most curious visitor arrived. His Rose. One morning, she emerged from the ground, delicate yet proud. She was unlike any other flower the Little Prince had ever seen. Her petals unfurled slowly, as though she were dressing for a grand occasion. When she finally revealed herself, she was breathtaking, a radiant red rose with a beauty that seemed to command the entire planet's attention. "Oh, I am still not fully awake," she said, stretching her delicate leaves. "Would you fetch me some water?" The little prince eagerly complied, marveling at her beauty and charm. Day by day, he tended to her every need, shielding her from the wind with a glass dome and guarding her against any harm. She was vain and demanding, often exaggerating her fragility. "I have 4 thorns," she would say, "but they're no match for the tigers." "There are no tigers on my planet," the little prince assured her. Her haughty demeanor puzzled him, yet despite her whims, he adored her. He loved her uniqueness, her vibrant color, and the way she filled his world with warmth and purpose. But her arrogance sometimes hurt him, and he began to question whether she truly cared for him or simply enjoyed his attention. The little prince was too young to understand the depth of his feelings, or hers. "I shouldn't have listened to her words," he later confessed. "Flowers are so contradictory, but I was too young to know how to love her." Caught between love and doubt, the little prince decided to leave his planet. His heart was heavy, but he hoped that by exploring the universe he might find answers to his questions about love, life, and the peculiar ways of people. Before departing, he carefully prepared his planet, ensuring it would be safe in his absence. He tended the volcanoes, pulled the last baobab shoots, and placed his beloved rose under her glass dome. "Goodbye," he said softly. The rose, who had always acted proud and distant, surprised him with her sudden tenderness. "I love you," she whispered, "but you were right to leave. I have my thorns to protect me." The little prince stood silently for a moment, then turned and walked away, the vastness of the cosmos awaiting him. He did not look back, for he knew he would carry her memory wherever he went. With a heavy heart but a hopeful spirit, the little prince embarked on his voyage across the stars. Guided by curiosity and a longing to understand life beyond his tiny planet, he visited 6 asteroids, each home to a solitary inhabitant. The lessons he learned on these worlds painted a vivid picture of the complexities and contradictions of adulthood. The first asteroid was ruled by a king, seated on a grand yet lonely throne. Though the king had no subjects, he exuded an air of authority draped in a robe so vast it covered the entire planet. "Ah, here comes a subject," the king exclaimed as the little prince approached. "But I'm not your subject," replied the little prince, puzzled. "All men are my subjects," declared the king. The king insisted that his power was absolute but harmless, for his orders always aligned with reason. "If I commanded a general to turn into a bird and he disobeyed, it would be my fault, not his," he explained. The little prince, unimpressed, asked to leave. The king, reluctant to lose his only companion, offered to make him a minister. "What would I rule over?" the little prince asked. "Over everything," said the king, gesturing to the stars. The little prince smiled politely. "You can only rule what people willingly follow. Goodbye." As he departed, he thought, grown-ups like to imagine themselves powerful, but they often rule over nothing. On the next asteroid, the little prince encountered a man wearing a flamboyant hat. "Ah, a visitor!" cried the man, bowing grandly. "Clap your hands, please, so I may be applauded." The little prince complied, clapping lightly. The vain man tipped his hat with a flourish, basking in the imaginary cheers. "What do you do here?" asked the little prince. "I admire myself," replied the man. "Isn't that the most important thing?" The little prince found this strange. But admiration for what? For being the most handsome, best-dressed, and cleverest person on this planet, the vain man declared. "But you're the only one here," the little prince pointed out. "True," said the man, "but it doesn't matter." The little prince sighed as he left, thinking, grown-ups can be so peculiar, needing others' approval even when it means nothing. On the third asteroid, the little prince found a man sitting among bottles, some empty, others full. "What are you doing?" the little prince asked. "I'm drinking," said the man. "Why?" "To forget," replied the drunkard. "Forget what?" "That I am ashamed." "Ashamed of what?" That I drink." The little prince, bewildered by this cycle of despair, said nothing and left, murmuring to himself, "Grown-ups are very, very strange." The fourth asteroid was home to a businessman, seated at a desk covered in ledgers. He was too busy to notice the little prince at first. "Good morning," said the little prince. "What are you doing?" "I'm counting," replied the businessman. "Counting what?" "Stars," said the man. "I own them all." "How can you own stars?" "By being the first to think of owning them," the businessman replied smugly. "What do you do with them?" asked the little prince. "I put them in the bank," said the man. "It makes me rich." The little prince shook his head. "Grown-ups are strange. Instead of admiring the stars, they want to possess them without enjoying them." The fifth planet was the smallest of all, with just enough space for a single lamp post and its lamplighter. "Good morning," said the little prince. "Why do you light and extinguish the lamp?" "It's my duty," replied the lamplighter. "I light it in the evening and extinguish it in the morning." "But your planet is so small," the little prince noted. "It completes a rotation every minute." "Exactly," sighed the lamplighter. "So now I light the lamp and extinguish it every 60 seconds. It's exhausting." The little prince admired the lamplighter's dedication, even though his task seemed absurd. "He's the only one who thinks beyond himself," he thought. "Perhaps I could stay here." But the planet was too small, and he had to move on. On the sixth asteroid, the little prince met a geographer, seated at a large desk surrounded by maps. "What do you do?" the little prince asked. "I record where mountains, rivers, and cities are," replied the geographer. "Have you explored these places yourself?" "No," said the geographer. "I rely on explorers to bring me information." "But how do you know they're truthful?" "That's why I require proof. Explorers must provide evidence before their findings are recorded." The geographer urged the little prince to visit Earth, describing it as a planet of great interest. As the little prince prepared to leave, he thought, "Grown-ups spend their lives collecting knowledge but often miss the joy of discovery." With each stop, the little prince encountered new forms of adult folly, learning more about the strange priorities of grown-ups. Guided by his curiosity and the lessons of these encounters, he set his sights on Earth, a world filled with both wonder and complexity. When the little prince arrived on Earth, he was struck by its vastness. It was unlike any planet he had visited before, so large and diverse that it seemed to hold every kind of life imaginable. He wandered across deserts, mountains, and fields, marveling at the richness of this new world. Despite the planet's beauty, he felt a pang of loneliness. On other worlds, he had always encountered someone, no matter how peculiar. But here, the sheer size of Earth made him feel small and isolated. As he strolled through a golden wheat field, he encountered a fox. The animal was sleek and mysterious, its amber eyes fixed on the little prince with quiet curiosity. "Who are you?" asked the little prince. "I am a fox," said the creature. "Come and play with me," said the little prince. "I am so lonely." "I cannot play with you," replied the fox. "I am not tamed." "Tamed? What does that mean?" "It means to establish ties," explained the fox. "To me, you are just a little boy like 100,000 others, and I am a fox like 100,000 others. But if you tame me, we shall need each other. You will be unique to me, and I will be unique to you." The little prince thought about his rose. She had been vain and demanding, yet he had cared for her deeply. "I think I am beginning to understand," he said. The fox continued, "You must be very patient. First, you will sit a little distance from me, like this, in the grass. Each day you will come a little closer. In this way we will tame each other." The little prince did as the fox instructed. Day by day he sat closer, and they grew to trust one another. In time, the fox became his friend, and the wheat fields, once ordinary, took on a new beauty. "You see," said the fox, "the wheat fields remind me of you. Before I met you, they meant nothing to me. Now they shine like gold because they are the color of your hair." As their time together came to an end, the fox shared a final secret. "Here is my secret. It is very simple. One sees clearly only with the heart. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The little prince repeated the words, knowing he would carry them forever. The little prince continued his journey and stumbled upon a garden filled with roses, each as beautiful as the rose on his planet. He stared in astonishment. His rose had told him she was one of a kind, yet here were thousands just like her. He felt a pang of disappointment. Was she not unique after all, he wondered. But as he sat among the roses, he thought of the fox's words. His rose was unique, not because of her appearance, but because of the bond they shared. He had watered her, protected her, and listened to her complaints. It was his love and care that made her special. "You are beautiful, but you are empty," he told the roses. "No one could die for you. My rose is different. She is the one I have watered and sheltered. She is the one I have tamed." The roses swayed in the breeze, indifferent to his words, but the little prince felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that love was not about appearances or numbers. It was about the time and effort spent nurturing something or someone. As the little prince journeyed on, the lessons of the fox and the rose weighed gently on his heart. He began to see the world through a different lens, one that valued connection over possession and care over control. Earth had taught him much already, but his story was not yet complete. He would soon encounter a stranger whose friendship would leave an indelible mark on his heart. The little prince's arrival in the pilot's life had been a miracle in the midst of despair. Stranded in the Sahara Desert, the pilot worked tirelessly to repair his broken plane. But it was the little prince's presence, his questions, his stories, and his unassuming wisdom that gave the pilot hope and a sense of companionship. Over their days together, the two grew closer. The little prince would often sit quietly, watching the pilot work, or he would speak of his travels, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. The pilot, in turn, began to open up, sharing his own dreams, frustrations, and his childhood drawing of the boa constrictor. "It's not a hat," the little prince had said immediately, recognizing the image for what it was. That simple acknowledgement had made the pilot feel seen in a way he hadn't since he was a boy. The friendship between them was unlike any the pilot had ever known, rooted not in words or shared goals, but in an unspoken understanding of the heart. One evening, the little prince spoke of returning to his star. He had discovered the pilot's plane was nearly repaired, and knew that their time together was drawing to a close. "I will miss you," the pilot said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "I will miss you too," replied the little prince, "but it is time for me to go. My rose is waiting for me. She needs me." That night, the little prince wandered into the desert, where he met a snake, slim and golden, like a thread of sunlight. The pilot, who had followed from a distance, watched as the two spoke quietly. "Are you certain?" the snake asked. "Yes," replied the little prince. "I must return to my planet. My rose cannot survive without me." The snake nodded. "I can help you, but it will look like you are dying. Do not be afraid. It is only the shell that will remain behind." The pilot stepped forward, alarmed. "What is happening? What are you doing?" The little prince turned to him with a soft smile. "It is not what it seems. My body is too heavy for the journey. The snake will free me so I can return to my star." The pilot's heart ached. He wanted to stop the little prince, to hold him back, but he knew that this was not his choice to make. The little prince had taught him about love, responsibility, and the beauty of letting go. As the sun rose the next morning, the pilot saw the little prince fall gently to the ground, as if asleep. He did not cry, for he knew the little prince had returned to his rose and his tiny planet. Days turned into weeks, and the pilot finally left the desert, his plane repaired. But he was no longer the same man. The little prince's words echoed in his mind. One sees clearly only with the heart. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Back in the world of adults, the pilot found himself changed. He no longer cared for numbers or efficiency. Instead, he sought out beauty, simplicity, and the joy of connection. He would look up at the stars each night, remembering the little prince's laugh and the promise they had made. "If you love a flower that lives on a star, It is sweet to look at the sky at night. All the stars are blooming with flowers, the little prince had said. The story of the little prince is not just the tale of a child from another world. It is a mirror, held up to our own lives. It reminds us to nurture what we love, to honor our responsibilities, and to never lose sight of the wonder and innocence we once held as children. As you close this story, ask yourself, what is your rose? Who or what have you tamed? The little prince reminds us that love and responsibility are intertwined, that what we care for becomes unique to us. Perhaps, like the pilot, we can look at the world differently, not with the eyes of a calculating adult, but with the heart of a child. The stars will never look the same again. And perhaps, somewhere among them, the little prince is still laughing, his golden hair glowing under the light of his tiny star.